Hello to you all, many thanks for joining us, dear viewers. So this is Owen Horno Podcast Future Africa program. I will come on the mobile host and producing this program. Have a good time with us. Today I'm joined by one African brother, Pan-Africanist from Uganda, and his name is Lambert Ebitu. Lambert, many thanks for joining me and welcome to this program.
Thank you, Obian, for inviting me. I'm highly honored to be part of this program. It's been a long time coming, but I'm proud that we finally have it.
Just tell us about yourself a little bit, then we'll proceed to our today's meeting.
Well, you've given my name. My name is Lambert Ebitu. I am a Ugandan politician, a citizen activist, and a Pan-Africanist. I contested in the last two general elections of Uganda. In 2016, I contested for member of parliament for my district. Then in 2021, the last election we had in Uganda, I contested for city mayor for my city. In both cases, I didn't make it, but I am deeply engaged in the politics of our country.
What is your understanding about the current situation of Ethiopia?
The situation in Ethiopia, I have said this time and again that the war, I've called it an African war. And by all accounts, it is a war that is being waged in Ethiopia. I think of Ethiopia as the battleground, but the war itself is being waged on Africa as a continent. And that's my broad perspective of the war in Ethiopia. Ethiopians are simply at the front line, holding the guns, but the war itself is being waged against Africa. Of course, in Ethiopia, I like to think of it as the TPLF as being simply a pawn in the game, but the war is an African war.
You tweeted about Ethiopia's current situation, saying Ethiopia is fighting the African war, the African battle. What did you mean by that?
Number one, Ethiopia has simply triggered what has long been hibernated among the hearts of most Africans. What the war in Ethiopia has done is set the momentum. It is give leadership to a frustration that has been there for decades. Look throughout Africa, intervention from every corner of Africa, whether you go to Niger, you go to Congo, you go to Libya, and we're thinking that this whole war has finally reached a critical stage and it has found itself at the door of Ethiopia. When you look at Ethiopia as a country in Africa, Ethiopia is the only country with the proudest history. If the West wanted to enter Africa to do what they couldn't do, or at least completely do in 1896, they have to pass through Ethiopia. And I can't imagine Ethiopia getting subdued. Which other country in Africa will stand up to the West? You've got to understand and to look at this war from a historical perspective if you want to see it clearly on its significance. Ethiopia was not colonized in 1896. You know more than I about the Adwa history. And we know that that the West has never forgiven Ethiopia. If you speak about unity in Africa, which country do you associate with unity? It's Ethiopia. The OAU, the predecessor to the one that came before AU, the mother of the current AU, was formed in Ethiopia. Ethiopia houses the headquarters of AU. It is basically the heart of Africa. And when I speak about unity, there is nothing that foreigners want to see in Africa apart from this unity. And Ethiopia stands for unity. You look at Ethiopia's record in terms of peacekeeping, whether it was in the Congo, all parts of Africa, Ethiopia has always been involved. So in a sense, subduing Ethiopia is to subdue Africa. Sometimes I keep telling people that sometimes Ethiopians maybe imagine that they are doing, that us, when we support Ethiopia, we are doing Ethiopia a favor. It's not true. I think that Ethiopia has done Africa the best favor. I can't imagine if this war had begun from anywhere else except Ethiopia, if it would have spent even a month before that country would have bowed down. But then I'm always telling friends when I discuss with them that Ethiopians have done us a favor. America has done us a favor to begin this war from Ethiopia because it has begun from a land of people who never give up. It has begun from a land of people who are proud. It has begun from a land of people who have a history to look back. Because Ethiopians will simply say, we've never been colonized. We won't be colonized now. All of us have been colonized before. And I don't know what we will base on to fight back. So Ethiopia and Ethiopians are doing us a favor. At the very worst, they are at the front line of this war against Africa.
If Ethiopia is fighting the Africa's battle, the Africa's war, why the rest of the African countries and their leadership is failed to join hands with Ethiopia to show their solidarity for this country in this critical time?
It is a problem that stretches back to how much we have been divided. You know, colonialism left more than physical differences in Africa. It left a psychological sense of inferiority. So when they put boundaries, for example, when they divided our continent into different and small countries, we were made to begin to think and to look at ourselves from a micro perspective rather than from a continental perspective. And that is what the West continues to want us to be. They want Ugandans to look at the problem in Uganda as purely a Ugandan affair. They want Ethiopians to look at the challenge in Ethiopia as for Ethiopia. And I can't imagine Ethiopia getting subdued. Which other country in Africa would stand up to the West? You know, you've got to understand and to look at this war from a historical perspective if you want to see it clearly on its significance. Ethiopia was not colonized in 1896. You know more than I about the Adwa history. And we know that, that the West has never forgiven Ethiopia. If you speak about unity in Africa, which country do you associate with unity? It's Ethiopia. The OAU, the predecessor to what happens in Ethiopia should be considered something that affects Africa as a continent. Now, we have that mentality. The physical boundaries separate us, but also psychologically, our people still have a long way to come to appreciate that we are one people, and that an attack on a country like Ethiopia is basically an attack on Africa as a continent.
What should be the way forward for Africans and Africa in general?
I think we need to fellowship more as Africans. I will give you an example of the late president of Tanzania, John Paul Magufuli. I don't know how many countries, I think he visited more countries in Africa, more than he did more countries outside. That is at a leadership level. I saw him visit more countries within Africa because somehow he believed that unless we Africans begin to network among ourselves, to build a level of consensus which appreciates that we are one people, then it becomes so difficult for us to relate with the world outside Africa as a race and as a continent. So I would recommend that going forward, we need to begin to see more fellowship. I want to see Prime Minister Abiy, and he's doing it, visit more countries within Africa. I want to see him rub shoulders with the presidents in Africa more than he does with outside. Let me tell you something. We have everything we need in Africa. Whatsoever an African head of state would go to do or get from America, he can get it in Africa. So if we can accept to relate among ourselves, of course, we are already in the process of regional integrations. We now have the East African community, we have SADC, but I believe we need to go beyond that.
What is your comment on the Prime Minister's decision to lead the army from the front line in the fight against the terrorist TPLF and the Western powers pressure on this country?
For a democratically elected leader to come to a point where he needs to go to the front line, it tells you one very important thing. It tells you how much he appreciates the significance of the war being waged on his country. Abiy could simply sit in his air-conditioned office in Addis Ababa and give orders. But the fact that he has chosen to leave the comfort of Addis Ababa and go to the front line, put his own life in danger, that should be something that anybody with common sense looks at and says, there must be something big happening in Ethiopia. I mean, it shows the significance of the war in Ethiopia. Abiy appreciates that Ethiopia can lose this war. But more than Ethiopia, I think that Abiy appreciates the significance of an Ethiopian win or loss in this war to Africa as a continent. I like to say that Abiy is actually the atlas on which Africa as a continent is resting. He knows this war must be won and is willing to put himself in the line. That should be an example, not just to other African heads of state, but to Ethiopians, to the Ethiopian people, and to other Africans, that no one is too important, no life is too important to be sacrificed for the life of a nation, for the life of a continent, for the life of a race, the African people, the black man.
Currently, many Pan-Africanists are praising the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Dr. Abiy Ahmed, for his contribution to the revival of Pan-Africanism. As one Pan-Africanist, what is your comment upon this point?
Obviously, in the last 10 years, I mean, from since Prime Minister Abiy came into the picture first in 2018, I think that the last, like I previously mentioned, the last president to walk the talk of Pan-Africanism was the late leader who was murdered by the US, Muammar Gaddafi. From since that time, it's only Prime Minister Abiy who has taken practical steps as a Pan-African. One of the challenges we face as Pan-Africanists is that we do too much of talking. We talk too much about Pan-Africanists. We quote too much of Kwame Nkrumah. Our work is to go and read about Kwame Nkrumah, and we quote what he said. We read about Haile Selassie, and we quote what he said. What we need, if Pan-Africanism is to actualize, is to begin to walk the talk. And one of the key tenets of Pan-Africanism is complete independence. It is to be one of the tenets. Pan-Africanism is about a common destiny of Black people, but a common destiny only comes when we become self-sufficient, when we become self-dependent, and we can't begin as a complete continent. What Prime Minister Abiy is doing in Ethiopia, the kind of self-sufficiency as a nation that Prime Minister Abiy is trying to establish in Ethiopia, is itself a Pan-African initiative. The GAD is a Pan-African project. Standing up to the US and saying, look, I'm not going to be ordered. We are not your children. We are a sovereign nation. Treat us as equals. Let us talk. Whatever is there that is to be done should be done on a win-win. Can you respect the territorial sovereignty of Ethiopia as a nation? That is Pan-African. And that is giving a new dimension to Pan-Africanism. Personally, I have been so encouraged. My fire for Pan-Africanism began to grow even more when I began to see the actions of Prime Minister Abiy. And it goes back. I have been involved with Ethiopia from the time of the GAD. And the GAD was the first thing that opened my eyes, that for once in so long a time, we have a leader who has chosen to look within his country, who has chosen to look within his people to develop a country. And that for me is at the heart of Pan-Africanism, looking within ourselves as a country, then looking within ourselves as a region, then looking within ourselves as a continent.
How do you see the hashtag normal campaign and movement and the changes it is making at the moment at global level?
The normal movement has invigorated Africans. I mean, you see from all corners, South Africa, go to Nigeria, go to Uganda, go to Sudan, go to Eritrea, and all people are saying no more. But what is the most important is not just saying no more. It is the motive behind the no more. What is this that's motivating people to say no more? We should focus on that. Why is the youth in Niger saying no more? Why is the young man, the mother in South Africa saying no more? Why is the veteran in Uganda saying no more? Why is Lambert Ebitu saying no more? The motive behind this movement. Then you are going to deflect that. What is the implication to the interests of the West in Africa? That's why I'm telling you that the normal movement is perhaps the biggest threat to the West in Africa in the last 20 years.
Last time, the government of Ethiopia awarded a certificate for you and a few of your colleagues. Why the certificate?
Obviously, it goes a long way to show you how hospitable the people of Ethiopia are, how much they appreciate those who stand with Ethiopia. But more than that, I think it is simply saying that thank you for having the extra eye to see that this war is bigger than Ethiopia, and therefore becoming a soldier in this war. I like to think they're simply awarding me and saying, you have joined the war to save not just Ethiopia, but to save our continent. And I felt so proud. I felt like, yes, this is this is effort given, this is effort being appreciated by those who are in the front lines, because Ethiopia is at the front line of this war.
What do you think is the reason behind the US interference into the very domestic affairs of Africans?
It is a long-standing policy of the US to interfere in other host nations. Their own president, Jimmy Carter, previously said that in its 250-year-old history, America is about 250 years old since it was discovered by some Italians. In that history, America has been at peace, has not been at war for only about 16 years. If we want to go back historically, so America seems to survive on war. But in this particular interest, in this particular question of Ethiopia, what is America's interest in Ethiopia? I asked that question in my Twitter handle the other day, and people gave quite a number of answers. But I am personally of the opinion, you must appreciate that we live in an age of rising powers. China as a world power, economically, politically, and militarily, is rising. And I can tell you that if they are not at par with the US, they may have overtaken the US. Now, what is happening in Ethiopia is part of the gimmicks of Cold War. It is up to the people of the Horn of Africa to appreciate that your neighbor is your best friend and your best protection in times of need. And that's where the whole circus, there are so many issues playing out in Ethiopia, but the bottom line is that Abiy has refused to be a puppet. Let me tell you, the war in Ethiopia can end today, at this moment, if Abiy accepts to be a puppet to the West and says, I will do as you say. Simple as that, it will end. Let me tell you, America will betray the TPLF right now. The TPLF has simply said that we have always done it in the past. We can be your policemen in the West. And they're saying, well, these are our people. So if Abiy can accept to do that, and let me tell you, the day he does that, of course, he would have betrayed Ethiopia. If he can betray Ethiopia, he will remain president. They will protect him. They will fund Ethiopia. But then that would be at the cost of the prosperity of Ethiopia. Something I believe Prime Minister Abiy has made clear that he's not the kind of leader who will betray people. He has made it clear that America is one country. Ethiopia is a country. We are a civilization older than America, about 4 times. We are a country with cultural achievements, with spiritual achievements. We are a country with a history, that America doesn't match. And this pride, I think I like to tell friends that the pride of Ethiopia as a country has found it is collective in the person of Prime Minister Abiy, because he appreciates what his country is. He appreciates the resources Ethiopia has. He appreciates the people Ethiopia has. And he appreciates that the only thing Ethiopia, like most countries in Africa, need is good leadership, committed leadership, Pan-African leadership, and leadership that puts the interests of the people of their country first before the interests of foreigners. And it's doing that for Ethiopia. And that is what the West does not want. That is what the West is fighting to stop in Ethiopia. Because if it succeeds in Ethiopia, it will be extrapolated throughout Africa.
For how long this trend will continue? Why the Africans have failed to stop such intervention into the very domestic affairs of their country?
I think it has got to come back. Well, it is inherited. We, as a people, the colonialism affected us psychologically. That's why, for example, you have Black people in the Congress in the US, and they are the ones who are speaking and trying to encourage intervention and the destruction of countries in their mother continent. Let me tell you, you will never become white if you're Black. It's as simple as that. If you're born Black, Ambassador Rice is born Black, she's Black. It doesn't matter what she does, she will remain Black. It means she owes Africa as a continent a debt that she can never repay. And the least she can do is to work for the sustenance and the life of Africa and Black people as a people and as a race. But you can see, even at that level, so what I'm telling you is that colonialism had a psychological effect. That is what the Pan-African Fanon said, it said black skin, white mask. We have so many of them, it affected us psychologically. So even in Africa, you have people and presidents who look at themselves first more than they look at the community of Black people, more than they look at Africa as a continent. And they accept to play the policeman of the West. They accept to become the clerks of the West within their own countries in Africa. So it is going to take a while, but it will take much longer if for some accident of nature, we do not get the kind of leadership that Prime Minister Abiy is giving. I like to tell people that imagine if we had 10 Prime Minister Abiys in Africa, this continent would change in 10 years and become something so powerful. But so far we have one in Ethiopia, and that one is being fought and sought to be destroyed before it even makes the mark on Africa as a continent. So most of our presidents haven't appreciated, or if they appreciate, they are so cowardly and lack a sense of responsibility to Africa as a continent. And it takes us back to the fact that they divided Uganda and said, you are called Uganda, you are called Kenya, you are called Rwanda, you are called Tanzania. And then in our mindset, we think that the challenges faced by people in Uganda are purely for people in Uganda. But the European doesn't think like that. We are one people. The interests of one country are the interests of another country. The euro, the US dollar are so powerful, but they are just two currencies. In Africa, 54 countries, how many currencies do you have? Some of them still depend on France. And that is the whole mess we have as a continent, because our presidents still don't appreciate the power of unity. And that is something that Haile Selassie, something that Kwame Nkrumah appreciated. And they took practical steps. You know, they didn't just talk about Pan-Africanism. They said, let's go to Addis Ababa and form a union. They said, let's go to Accra and affirm our union. They said, let's go to Cairo and affirm our union. They took practical steps. And that is what, at a personal level, I pray our current leadership can do. I don't like, it's okay to hear them say Ethiopia is the mother of Africa. That is nice to hear. It's nice to the ears. It is good to say, speak about unity, but we need practical steps towards that unity. And it begins from the leadership. That's why I am so passionate that Prime Minister Abiy must be protected at all costs, because he has lit the fire. We need to make sure that fire does not die now. We need to make sure at some point, whether Prime Minister Abiy is president or not, this fire should have cooked every corner of Africa and give us a new momentum going forward as a continent.
Why the US, the United States of America, wanted to help the rebels while the democratically elected government is here in Ethiopia, and what is the contract that was signed between the TPLF and the US? What is your reflection on this point?
The relationship between TPLF goes back deep. America, but it is not just America. You know, sometimes we bump them as America, but I like to think of it more as individuals within the corridors of Washington. You know, you have individuals who have dealt at an individual level and benefited from Ethiopian resources and benefited from the loans that they give Ethiopia before Prime Minister Abiy became the leader of Ethiopia. So we have this kind of relationship that is personal between some members of the TPLF and some individuals who influence America's foreign policy. Because honestly, what is happening in Ethiopia, what America, the path, the policy of America in Ethiopia is so stupid and so obviously flawed that it doesn't take intelligence for you to see that it's a mistake. You cannot equate a rebel group, you can't equate individuals to the democratically elected government of any country. But the West is doing that. You can't talk of the government of Ethiopia and TPLF in equal terms, even if TPLF is your girlfriend. I mean, it is common sense, but the West is doing it. It is so blatant, it is so deliberate, it tells you that this is something that goes deep between the TPLF and the US. But also it tells you about how divergent Prime Minister Abiy and his government have decided to be from being ordered by the West. So this confluence of contradictions has put America at a point where they no longer have shame to do something that is so obviously stupid, that is so obviously clear. Because anybody who listens, anybody who has followed these issues, appreciates that the policy of the US in Ethiopia, after, by the way, so many years of friendship, to be thrown away just like that, it is something that nobody understands. It is something that is so ironic. It tells you about the relationship, that it is more than political. It is personal between some individuals who unfortunately influence US foreign policy and some individuals within the TPLF. I don't want to say America, just like I don't want to say the people of Tigray, because even in Tigray, you have a few individuals who want power and are using the people of Tigray, as an excuse. They are behaving and acting and pretending to be doing the murder, to be killing other people, to be doing all this destruction of their country in the name of people who want nothing but peace, who want nothing than to be part of their great nation. As simple as that. So these things about individuals within the TPLF and individuals within the US administration. I don't think that the ordinary American, despite all the propaganda that their media gives them, CNN, BBC, I believe the people of America are good people. That's why you have some white people standing, by the way, with Ethiopia. You have some white journalists speaking well about Ethiopia because they have taken interest to appreciate this whole situation. So it's a few individuals in the State Department and a few and individuals within the TPLF who have a personal relationship.
Brother Lambert Bitu, I'm done with all my questions. And lastly, if you have a general message, you are welcome.
My message to the people of Ethiopia is that just like in 1896, when your victory in Adwa as a nation inspired us as a continent to demand and fight for our independence throughout Africa, your victory, our victory in this war will inspire the rest of Africa to rise up against neocolonialism. You are not just important to Africa in terms of your history. Ethiopia is important to Africa in terms of Africa's future. And I can only ask the people of Ethiopia, the young people, that there is nothing more important than to defend the existence of your nation. For no reason must Ethiopia disintegrate. And I'm giving this message from a Pan-African perspective. Do you know why? Because Pan-Africanism is looking at achieving as the final goal, a key goal, a united Africa, a political union of Africa as a continent. How can we talk about the political union of Africa if our largest countries, our most populated countries get divided? Instead, we should be talking about how do we add to these countries? How do we add to Ethiopia? How do we add other countries as a political union to Ethiopia, to Nigeria? So disintegrating Ethiopia is destroying the heart of the possibility of a united Africa. That's how significant it is. Please defend Ethiopia. We stand with Ethiopia. We are doing what we can do using the weapons that we have, because me personally, my weapon right now is social media and mobilizing the people of Uganda and those to whom I'm able to reach to appreciate this war and get involved. We are with you. Do not abandon Prime Minister Abiy. He's not fighting for his government. He's fighting for the continuity of your country as Ethiopia.
Pan-Africanist and politician Lambert Bitu from Uganda. Many thanks for joining me. Appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
Right. Dear viewers, this will bring us to the end of this edition. I'm Kabawandemo by hosting and producing this program. We highly appreciate your time with us. Have a beautiful time till the next edition.